what he's saying here. And we know that Benjamin Netanyahu has also said that it's 1939, Iran is Germany, and Ahmadinejad is Hitler. I mean, he's made that comparison. And he's trying to tell the world, it's like, look, if the Iranians get the bomb, all hell is going to break loose. So at some point there's going to be a confrontation. The Iranians know this, and they're working 24 hours a day to get the bomb before they're hit and taken out. So does this mean that the Iranians pull the trigger first because they know the Israelis want to do a preemptive strike? Now that Obama's president, I mean, the whole geopolitical landscape has changed. Obama is, who does he go with first? Not the Jerusalem Post. He sits down with Al-Arabi. It's like, what the heck is going on here? He writes a letter to Ahmadinejad. Now, granted, at the same time, he spoke to, Israel. But, I mean, it's, what is really going on behind closed doors? All that to say, I believe that the governments of the world know, not all leaders, but many leaders know exactly where this thing is going. And they've already laid down. Look, George Bush, here's an example. George Bush was elected in this country, in the United States of America, which is basically a Christian country. There will people who argue with me about that. We celebrate Christmas here, not Ramadan, okay? It's a national holiday, all right? The small contingent of Muslim population in this country, with all due respect to them, we celebrate Christmas. It's a Christian culture. It's a Christian, worldview. Our morals, our Constitution, which is the greatest document ever on this planet, outside of the Bible perhaps, is look towards the Bible for its inspiration. All men are created equal. All men have inalienable rights. All men are endowed with life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. These things are the essence of the Constitution, and you can make a real strong case that this all sprung from the Protestant Reformation, which happened in Europe, which John Knox and the crew over in England and wrote and gave their lives for. Okay? So we live in this Christian worldview, per se. Well, all that's being chipped away to the point where Bush, when he got elected, ran on the platform of being a very hardline Christian. I mean, people thought he was a Bible-believing Christian. Then he comes out after the second election and tells us, well, it really doesn't matter who you pray to, whether you're Jew, Christian, or Muslim, you're all praying to the same God. Well, if he had said that in the first election, he never would have gotten elected. That's blasphemy. From a Christian worldview, Christian point of view, for a theologian like myself to look at that, that's blasphemy. It's a blasphemous utterance. It is. And if he had uttered it from any pulpit in the United States, the next morning he would have not had a job. Then he says a few months ago that, well, I believe in some parts of the Bible, but certainly not all of it. I'm not a literalist. Again, he makes these statements after he's been elected the second term. All that to say, what has he seen that shifted his worldview? What did Pope Benedict see that shifted his worldview from at one time embracing the Fatima apparitions as bringing the Mary, the Mother of God, Mary, Mother of Jesus, manifesting in Fatima, 1917, Portugal, to distancing himself after he's Pope? Fatima was for another time. Flip-flop, total flip-flop, total distancing himself. What's going on here? Is it, in fact, again, I'm speculating here, is it, in fact, that some of these leaders have been brought into the inner circle? Call them whatever you want. The Illuminati, who cares what they're called? It's all part of a greater Luciferian conspiracy, which has frankly been going on for thousands of years with one end in mind. Global government, global religion. And that's what we're seeing. Obama, twice in his speech, New Age.
Yes, I heard that.
Is it twice? So, it's like, it's the same old deal, man. The whole thing is heading. In fact, the book I'm working on now is called The Acceleration, The Rush Towards Armageddon. And that's the current book I'm working on. And it's like, I look around and that's all I see. It's mind-boggling.
And by the way, I think Obama had to be sworn in twice, and the second time apparently he did so without the Bible. Yeah. What does that tell you as a Christian?
Well, it's bothersome. I mean, it's a bothersome deal. I mean, surely if you go, okay, well, it looks like we botched the inauguration the first time, okay? Does that mean it counts? Well, yes, it counts, but we're going to do it again just to make sure. Well, if you're setting all that up, right, if you're setting all that up and you were a man of faith, wouldn't you also set up the fact that, has anybody got a Bible around here so we can do this thing the right way?
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't you set that up? I mean, I don't know. People have made a big deal of that.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm looking at. It's troubling to me. It's troublesome to me.
What about the alleged Muslim background of Obama? Do you think that there's something to that, and that's a significant thing here?
Well, the short answer to that would be yes. There's this whole contingent of people on the net that are demanding, why can't we see his birth certificate?
Mm-hmm.
And, I would say, look, if there's no problem, why can't we see his birth certificate? Why is this thing hushed up? Why this, if he's not an American citizen, then he shouldn't be president.
Mm.
I mean, who knows what's really going on? We don't know. And does he have a Muslim background? I don't know. He tells us he's Christian, but he sat in that church for 20 years. Obviously, his brain was checked out. How could you sit there and listen to the hate speech of Reverend Wright? And look, I understand where he comes from. He comes from, look, let me back that up by saying this, that the horrors of slavery in this country was absolutely one of the most inhuman atrocities ever perpetrated on the human race,
yes.
ever perpetrated on the blacks. I mean, there's just no doubt. We are still reeling from centuries of slavery. And the blacks as a community in this country have really been neglected until the King era, when they finally won some semblance of acceptance. And even in the Deep South, it still took another 20 or 30 years. Mm. And we see that racial unrest is really just underneath the surface, just like anti-Semitism is. It doesn't take much to lose the thin veneer of civility that we have in this society in the United States. And we see it. We see it raise its ugly head. I don't know. I don't know exactly what Reverend Wright is really about. I've never interviewed the guy. I mean, I'd love to sit him down and talk and get some questions and do some Q&A and find out what his belief system really is to weigh in. But from what I've read and what I've heard, it seems like, he's very much what I would call anti-American and certainly anti-white on some level. It appears that way anyway.
Mm.
And how does that fit in with Obama? How could he possibly sit in a church like that knowing what this man believes? I mean, why wouldn't he just get up and flee? With all fairness to Obama, he came on when I've seen him on the O'Reilly Factor, for instance, which was really one of the only interviews that was candid and some hardball questions. Any other interview was all softball stuff. At least O'Reilly threw this guy some questions, and Obama answered those questions, and he was forthright in his answers. He's doing all the right things. He's going to church, blah, blah, blah. Here's the deal, though. Look, Bush said all the same things, and then a couple of years later he comes out and says exactly, things that made me cringe. So if there is an Illuminati, if there is a one world government system, if the financial collapse that we're looking at is actually a controlled financial collapse to bring us all to a one world financial system, which all the world leaders are just clamoring for, as I already pointed out, Sarkozy, Merkel, and then Blair are talking about this thing, and Berlusconi in Italy saying the same thing. I mean, what's going on here? Well, meanwhile, Joe Sixpack, Joe Paycheck on the street is just worried about, trying to pay the mortgage for the month. Yeah. He doesn't have time to deal with all this stuff. He's got 3 kids to feed, the mortgage to pay, and, guess what? The car needs a new clutch. That's another $400 that I didn't consider. Where's that money going to come with? That's what he's dealing with. So why America works, why the average person works, globally, this whole thing is rushing towards a one-world governmental system. I mean, it certainly appears that way. With the collapse of the Icelandic government, which happened last weekend, and now we're looking at what's happening in Mexico, what might happen in Pakistan. I mean, the world is really teetering in a really strange place. I've never seen it like this before, which is which is why I'm desperately trying to get, even though I just finished the alien interviews, the new book I'm working on is called The Acceleration, the rush towards Armageddon, and that's what I see happening. I see this planet rushing towards it, and it's being propelled by forces that are not natural forces. The forces behind this thing are supernatural forces, and they're pushing it, they're moving it. Just like 2,000 years ago, Paul the Apostle writes, the mystery, the secret of lawlessness is at work and will continue to work until it brings about the Antichrist. That's its mission, and I think that's what we're looking at. So it's very troubling times that we live in.
Indeed, definitely. And speaking a little bit more on politicians, they have an allegiance to the New World Order, as it were. I think Norman Finkelstein said in a recent interview, a really good interview with Russia Today, that in regards to Obama and so forth, that he basically, as all the rest of them in many cases are, they're opportunists. They are interested in political power, nothing more. And for them, it doesn't matter in what direction they need to turn, in whatever time they need to do that in order to gain the popularity of the masses, and they're interested in the power of it. Then it doesn't really matter. And what I see is that the main overarching agenda here is that it's a slow movement towards globalization that is taking place, and it doesn't matter who we put up on the front, and no one that isn't supposed to be there is probably never going to end up there anyway. That's what I see at this point.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. It's very troubling. I mean, there is an agenda, and the globalists, the Illuminati, the one worlders. I mean, look, again, people go, Lynn, are you a conspiracist, a spiritologist? And I go, yeah, but not in the way you think. I believe in a supernatural conspiracy, which is called the mystery of iniquity. That baby's been around for thousands of years, and that's what's fueling all this. And it dovetails into prophecy. We are rushing towards the time of Armageddon, rushing towards the time of Jacob's trouble. That's where this thing is going. And it's multifaceted. It's on so many different levels. And UFOs and the alien interviews, which is what the new book is, I mean, that's one area of it. That's certainly a manifestation of the supernatural, which is on the earth, which we see on the earth, but it also dovetails into the political, and eventually it will. And that's what, the preceding book, Politics, Prophecy, and the Supernatural, that's what that talks about. That's why I wrote that book. That's why it's look, you don't have to buy it. If I could give it to you free, I would. But, for $10, it may be the best $10 you'll spend in a long time, because I'll tell you this, it will arm you, the reader, with facts that you need to know. You need to know what's in the book. You need to know how it works together. You need to know what the prophecies say, how they affect you and me, how what's happening in the global economy, this financial meltdown is leading us and pushing us into a one world financial system, which may in fact then lead to the chipping of entire populations, or what many people believe could be used as what Scripture tells us and prophecy tells us, the mark of the beast. 2,000 years ago, Henrik, when they wrote that, when John the Apostle wrote that, I mean, it's an absurd statement that no man will be able to buy, sell, or trade without this mark. I mean, what the heck is that? Let strip it down and expose the truth there. What are they talking about? What the heck are they talking about? And yet, up until the modern era, it seemed like just, John was smoking something, because there's no way that's going to happen. And now we see exactly the specificity of that prophecy all set to go. And of course, that is with Digital Angel, that chip that can be implanted basically under a person's skin. And, that could be used as the mark. It contains all your financial record. You can't duplicate it. We lose billions of dollars a year in identity theft and credit card theft. And this is a great answer, a great solution to it. Plus, illegal aliens coming into the country. It's the answer to the green card. I mean, it's just, look, if it wasn't in the Scripture, we'd all go, wow, what a great idea. I'm going to go get mine tomorrow, right? Wouldn't you? No. But we know, we're warned that this is exactly the mark of the beast will be used by the son of perdition, the Antichrist, to enslave the planet. No man will be able to buy, sell, or trade without this mark. And it's here. The mark is here. Is it being used? Yeah, in some places. Is it being used widely? No, not yet. But at some point it's going to. Very strange times.
It's slowly implemented. Absolutely. That's it's all part of this kind of technological grid that they're building up. This new type of system that is going in, and again, much in accordance with the New World Order agenda. Hey, Lynn, listen, there's one aspect here that we haven't really dived into yet that you do talk about in your book, and that is about animal mutilations. Maybe we can spend a few minutes just talking about that a little bit. This is another very weird, of course, area that is very difficult to kind of figure out what the heck is going on, why, and so forth. In your book, have you talked specifically with someone who have encountered this